to me, government's intention to close the wage gap is overly ambitious to me. I don't think that will happen in our lifetime. But I think it's a step in the right direction, because there are, if there's no minimum wage, there are employees or employers who will take advantage of that fact and pay employees whatever they want to pay them. But at least if you know that in this sector, if I'm a businessman and I want to enter for example, the security industry, then I must be able to understand and know that employees in this sector are supposed to get a minimum of this as a salary. I must be prepared to pay that salary, unless if I have a reason not to do that, because the legislation allows it.
Yeah. So basically, you believe that, okay, minimum wage is a step in the right direction as a blanket legislation to regulate how workers are paid. But do you feel that that sort of conflicts with your idea of saying that unions within specific work areas would basically work out their own deals with employers based on the affordability and the success of their business?
Yes, I believe that. It is very much better, because legislation like Basic Conditions of Employment Act would also provide that employers must remember that minimum wage must not lead to downward variation, which means that you cannot downgrade the salaries of employees in a particular sector, because when the legislation was passed, you were already paying employees above what is legislated. It means that if you're paying employees above, well and good, continue to do good. We are saying those who are below, let them upscale, let them go up, and the role of the union there will be that while there is this minimum wage legislation, there are also other competing priorities, especially looking at particular sectors. Must remember, in each and every sector, there are peculiarities.
Yeah, of course.
In one sector, there'll be this challenge. In another sector, there'll be another challenge. Then I'll say in this sector, we have 1, 2, 3 challenges. I think this minimum wage is good, but as an employer, if you are able to afford it, why don't you add another percentage over and above what these employees are getting? That is why it will be very important when it comes to the issue of unionization, what you refer to as a compulsory unionization. That is where, depending on the level of capacity and the power of that union, it will be able to address this issue through collective bargaining.
You know, Ntate, from my understanding of this issue, is that, like you said, when you started answering the question, without the minimum wage legislation, a lot of employers would take advantage. Now for me, I think combining minimum wage legislation with compulsory unionism, your unionization, seems to be overkill for me, because if we consider the fact that, as we agreed, that most of the working force is not unionized, right? This is where minimum wage legislation falls in, right? Because a lot of them are not represented by unions to protect them and speak for them, right? When they're being exploited. But if you have compulsory unionization, it should mean that the 100% of the workforce will be unionized, right? And therefore, minimum wage will be unnecessary because the unions are there to be the watchdog. You don't need the law to enforce. You've got the unions there to enforce, right? Because my issue is really this, with regards to the concern that I raised. If a small business cannot afford, right, or because it's starting out, it doesn't really generate the revenues to afford, either it does not employ people, all right, or it does not employ enough people to run the business. So it's either doesn't employ at all or it doesn't employ enough, right? There are other ways that it could possibly seek to remedy that. Maybe paying the employee what it can, and offering the employee shares, right? To sort of say these shares, can sort of make up the difference to what we're supposed to pay you with regards to a minimum wage, for example, right? But my concern is that it's almost the minimum wage for certain business owners and certain wannabe entrepreneurs says, look, if you cannot afford this amount, then you should not even start your business. And this is how it actually challenge, or let's say threatens entrepreneurship.
That should not be necessarily be the case.
Mm-hmm.
Just because the legislation as well as collective bargaining agreements provide that in a sector where an employer feels that the financial position is not in such a manner that it will be able to afford whatever is required by the law or by the employer, will be given a chance to justify it. For example, it will be able to justify it.
Okay.
Meaning that you would say to government, or you would say to the collective bargaining structures, while I am in this sector and I'm required to pay rent to these employees, because of 1, 2, 3 reasons, I can only afford to pay them 108, not 20. If it is acceptable to the bargaining council, then that will happen, unless if there are challenges legally and so on. But there is that leeway. It does not mean that it is a hard and fast road. It is rigid. It is not rigid. Those are the flexibilities that are there. Whereas sometimes they are being misused and abused by these employers, but they are there. But I want to address another issue related to that. The question of employers or employees who are not unionized, who are going to be able to be covered or to be accommodated by this minimum wage legislation. Unfortunately, I might not have the stats or the accurate information, because I cannot claim to have done any research. But my observation is that employees who are not unionized have become victims of non-compliance of employers. Non-compliant employers, as far as legislation is concerned. If the minimum wage is R2, it is very, very easy for employers to pay them 150, say R2 per hour. It's very easy for them to pay 150 per hour, because this person is not unionized. And as I told you, I don't know whether it was yesterday or when, I said there's a lot of intimidation. And when you talk too much, you'll be promised dismissal.
Yeah.
That is what is happening. That is what is happening. Actually, that is what workers are also telling us almost every day. That we know about sectoral determination, so and so. They say you must get 1, 2, 3, but here we are not getting it. That is what is happening. But unfortunately, it's not only happening in ununionized environments. Even where there are unions which are weak, you must remember there are also unions which are weak, very, very, very weak, meaning that those that are not servicing their employees appropriately. Employees are also suffering the very same fate, which is very unfortunate.
Just going back to one of the other issues that we discussed with regards to social unity, we were discussing how citizens' dependence on the government's social benefits is deteriorating the unity amongst individuals and communities, right? I'm not at the time you understood my point. I just wanted to further just ask you, how would you then reconcile union activity in terms of advocating for more social benefits for individual citizens, and the fact that these social benefits create this dependency, which then destroys this unity that they should have amongst themselves? How would you reconcile the work that unions should do, and what can unions do better to actually sort of promote social unity?
Unions are supposed to not only play a role, according to my understanding, on workers' issues. Unions are also supposed to be agents of change. Unions are supposed to also play a role in ensuring that they don't only better the life of their members. When you recruit people to come into the union, you must not only think about this member, you must also think about the welfare of this member, including his or her family. That is why there are these social benefits that we are referring to. That is why when you recruit members, if you can offer as a union, let's say you are a big union or you can afford, if you are able to offer these members bursaries, you must also be able to offer beneficiaries of this very same member. If this person has got children, has got siblings, and so on, depending on the pace of the bursary, you must be able to say the union is also able to assist here and there as far as your family is concerned. I think that is one of the issues that the union can do. Another thing is that unions are also supposed to contribute to the social dialogue within communities. Unions are supposed to send representatives to community structures, CPF, night watch organizations, civic organizations, and so on, where unions, where the union's voice must be heard. You know what will happen if a union does that? The union will always have the support of the community when the union is conducting a particular action. If the union is striking, the union will be able to have the support of the community because they know the union. The union is supporting the community or is supporting people here and there. But if the union is not there, it is only looking at the interest. That is why people are always complaining that unions are only concerned about people who are working. People are not working, nothing is happening. There are unemployment structures nowadays. Unions are supposed to support these structures. Unions are supposed to say, we know that there's an unemployment structure here. We are going to ensure that when there are, for example, if there's a big company, unions are supposed to say, you employer, you must ensure that you send advertisements to these unemployment structures. And we want to have a report that from these unemployment structures, how many people were recruited in the last 6 months, and so on and so on and so on. If this unemployment structure sees a union playing that role, I'm definitely sure that members of the community would change the perception about only knowing a union to be concentrating on workers' issues.
One thing that I was thinking about is, can you just explain to me and the viewers why is it that unions, or the nature of a union as an organization, is to be non-profit? Why is it that it chooses to be non-profit? Is there a reason behind that? What is the thinking behind it?
Unfortunately, this is not the choice by the union. It is a legislation. I don't know what was the mind of the legislator when the issue of unions was dealt with. But I think when I guess, I think that they wanted to ensure that there's a difference between the employer and the union. Because if you can see, the union is a normal... I was saying maybe the intention of the legislator was that there should not be... they must not conflate the role of the union and the role of the employer in the workplace. Because once they leave it just like that, and unions register with the
CIPC.
CIPC, just like all other employers, they're not registered maybe with the Department of Labor. It will be a normal company. So it will be one company challenging another company. And then on the other hand, there will be law firms. So it means it will be a lot of chaos.
It would be.
That is what
I see.
I think. But I want to emphasize, this is not the choice of the union.
Okay.
It was the choice. Yeah, I think it is. It was the legislature.
The reason I ask is just, if you consider the point of a union, in my opinion, is to uplift the working class. Basically, just in short, is to uplift the working class, and to do so economically, right? And the non-profit motive seems to go against it very... It's sort of saying you are allowed to uplift yourself economically, but you're not allowed to make money. You're not allowed to make profits, which seems to be clashing.
Let's look... I understand. But let's look at my understanding. I'm giving you my understanding. The initial intention of unionization was basically to fight exploitation. The intention was to say workers are exploited. How do we protect these workers from exploitation? When you look at the original intention of the union, was to ensure that workers are not dismissed arbitrarily. Workers are able to defend themselves, and then workers are able to bargain for themselves when it comes to things like conditions of service and so on and so on and so on. These other extras, like benefits of insurance and so on and so on and so on, according to me, these things, I think, they were introduced later on as I think as the world progresses, and because again we are living in a capitalist society, you can't be fighting only about dismissals and so on and leave workers outside of the economic landscape. That is my understanding.
Yeah. And how would you bring fighting exploitation and upliftment together? Do you think they are one and the same? Do you think they are connected but they're not the same? How would you basically characterize the relationship between upliftment and fighting exploitation?
They are related.
Yeah. But they're not the same.
Because they are not the same. Because you can fight exploitation, and you are fighting exploitation, meaning that you become complacent, become comfortable with what you have. But I was saying you can fight exploitation, resist it, so that you can be comfortable where you are with what you have. If the employer wants to exploit you or does something untoward, you fight, you resist, but you continue as you are.
I see.
It's true that it's a spirit of complacency. It's not really advisable to do that. But I'm saying there are those type of situations, and many employees are in that type of situation, which is unfortunately not advisable in this present economic
conditions. So basically, you're saying that fighting exploitation is more complacent if that's all you do, but if it's better that you fight exploitation and then you also chart a way forward to upliftment. Am I understanding you correctly?
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. You mentioned in one of our interviews you talked about factionalism and how it has created some challenges in your experience in the space. What is factionalism? If you just categorize it in your own understanding, what is factionalism?
Yeah, in my own understanding, factionalism will be a grouping of people who believe in a particular direction, different to another one in an organization. In one organization. That is my understanding. Okay, there'll be one or more groups in the same organization. But these people, regarding the present and also the future of the organization, the perspective is completely different. That is my understanding.
So these people, they have a different perspective on the current condition and the future aspirations of the organization. Eh?
Correct.
And when you say different from that of the organization itself.
It can sometimes be different. I'm saying it could be different because sometimes it would be a misapplication or misinterpretation of the policies and the laws, or what we can call regulations, or what we can call the direction of the organization. And unfortunately, in some other instances, it will be a deliberate distortion of the truth.
A deliberate sort of,
Yes, deliberate, because if one faction believes you are wrong, whereas you are not wrong, you are sticking to to the rules or the policies of the organization, it is very simple for them to distort these very same rules, misapply them at your expense. Can look at, if I may, can look at the way there is this misunderstanding on the step during the ANC. I'm just making an example.
Yeah.
The step aside rule, step aside rule in the ANC is misunderstood by everybody.
You know, Nkate, from what you're saying, here's how I understand it. The possible reasons why this might come about may be because of a misinterpretation or a misunderstanding of organizational policies and aspirations and directions going forward, and sort of misconstruing that to mean something where it actually means something different, right? It means something else, right? So it's sort of like a conceptual hijacking of the aspirations and the policies of the organization. But on the other hand, you say that it's a deliberate misconstruing, deliberate sort of take to say, so it's a disagreement essentially with the organization and its aspirations to say what you want to intend on achieving is actually not good enough.
True.
Okay. So
that's my stance.
Yeah. Do you feel that that is an explanation that covers all the bases when a lot of these, both those examples of reasons why it could come about can be dealt with within the organization through its many, mechanisms, meetings, conferences, and so on and so forth to clear up these issues, these disagreements, and these misunderstandings? Do you think these are misunderstandings that persist regardless of the many mechanisms within the organization to deal with them?
When it comes to that, with me, I'm very, very clear. You know what, to me? I don't believe in over-regulation. And also, I don't believe in excessive attention given to one thing over and over again. What I'm trying to say is that I believe that if an organization has got policies, if an organization has got rules, and then we say the rule means this, and another person doesn't understand that. If there is a rule that says, actually, that is why, if the person, sometimes it's not that he doesn't understand, he doesn't want to understand, because he has got his own factional agenda.
Yeah.
And my understanding is that you must invoke your disciplinary processes. You must deal with this person. I'm telling you, you must deal with this person. Because this person is going to bring your organization into disrepute. This thing of holding meetings over and over again, talking about the same thing for the whole year, next year again, you wait for another Congress, you speak about the very same thing. To me, it doesn't work. To me, it doesn't work because you seem like people who do not know what they are doing. If I'm told that in our organization this is how we do things, and I propose the election of a particular person because according to me he is pursuing that agenda, and this person sticks to this agenda. He also complies with policies and the agenda of the organization. If somebody else comes and wants to change, this person must go to a relevant structure, make proposals. If the person is defeated, he must accept that he's defeated. If he misbehaves, according to me, he must be dealt with procedural. There must be disciplinary action.
It sounds to me that at the point where someone does not want to understand, like you said, because they have, or he or she has, his factional agenda. It is my understanding that at that point, they already have and they already are representing and speaking on behalf of a faction. Now my question is basically how, this splintering of the actual splintering of the organization, right? From what I understand you say, it comes from this misunderstanding, and the meetings that you have, they do not resolve that, and you can't keep on having the same meetings over and over, wasting time trying to convince people. So in a way, these people are left behind, so to speak, and they become their own little cabal of left behind people, right? That then form their own agenda because they've been left behind, or they refused to, I don't want to say left behind as if I'm blaming the organization, but they've refused to get on with the organization, and therefore they chose to. Okay, what I'd like to put to you now is there's a theory that I came across, and I'd just like to hear your thoughts on this. And this pertains to actually, it's to add to one of the reasons why these things may come about. There's a study that was done by a guy whose surname was Dunbar. I don't remember his first name, but his surname was Dunbar, Dunbar, ne? And his study was basically looking at the optimal size, the correct size of a social network. All right, so that means the correct size, the correct number of people an individual is supposed to know in order to maintain healthy relationships, meaningful relationships with every one of them. All right. So the study basically deduced that one human being can know a maximum. There's a maximum number of people you can know very well and develop a meaningful relationship with. Now, the problem with organizations, if you apply this to organizations, is that once they exceed a certain size in number of people, you start getting distances between people that are too big because there's too many people in between. There are people that you don't really know. You're part of the same organization, but you don't really know them. You don't really have a relationship with them because the organization is so big. All right. Now, if you consider other material, other research that I've come across, which deals with how relationships are important between people. All right. People listen firstly through relationships rather than listening to the information itself. Right. Yeah. So they listen to who you are to them first, and then they'll consider the information you present. Okay. So now if you combine those two, you have a big organization full of people. All right. And it's so big that because of the maximum number of people you can have, already you have factions of social networks. All right. Okay. And then because now you have those different factions, you're more likely now to have such disagreements and deliberate misconstruements of these understandings and so on. So therefore, my point here being, do you think it makes sense that the size of the organization and the amount of people involved it makes sense as a sort of root cause of all this division?
I think you are absolutely correct. I think that theory is founded. According to my understanding, because when you look at these big conferences, or when you look at these big organizations, you'll realize that some of them degenerate during particular processes to such an extent that you realize that there's only chaos here.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever outcome is going to be reached in that particular organization, it always becomes questionable.
Mm.
And I think there should be a way, as you're saying, there should be a way of managing that. One of the ways of dealing with issues in an organization, according to me, is to agree on what you said when you started, house rules.
Mm.
Is to stick to the house rules. Stick to the house rules. Our organization works like this. This is how we do things. And if in that organization we can have at least more than 50% of people who are empowered, who are able to raise issues, people who will be able to say, it doesn't matter that this person is my senior leader. If this leader is out of order, he is out of order. Because your gripe will be on the basis of the house rules, will be on the basis of the policies of the organization.
Mm.
If organizations can stick to those rules, I'm telling you, most of the things would be successful. I don't want to promote
chaos,
dictatorship.
Oh, okay, yes.
I don't want to promote dictatorship, but sometimes level. But sometimes I'm telling you to me.
Yeah.
Sometimes a minuscule level of dictatorship is necessary.
Yeah, people need to be directed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to have a lot of chaos, and then you realize that no, man, but no, this can't be, man.
On that point, I fully agree with you. Not actually, and I think it's good that you mentioned it, because this is where I'm going with this. We are going to where I want to go. Basically, my issue here is, whenever you have a grouping of people, as is the nature of a union, isn't it?
Yeah.
The way I understand it, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, you require a form of bureaucracy or hierarchy. Okay, you need a leadership structure. Okay, because you need things to get done, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that is the way in which the group can reach consensus, even if some members in the group have to concede that, you know what, I've raised my point, I've been allowed to express myself, but the group has chosen not to agree with me or to take, or to, they've considered what I have to say, but they've put it aside, and so on. So they've lost the consensus, basically. Okay. So that is absolutely necessary. The question is, though, to what extent? Remember, as I was talking about that number of people, the size of the group, how far can you take that before threatening the efficiency of the group? Right? And that's what factionalism is, isn't it? Factionalism is now the group splintering because it cannot now carry its own weight, because it cannot now administer consensus. Like you've just said, whenever you have these big conferences, you have too many people there, you have too many different groups of people, which means too many interests, too many understandings of the rules, too many, you understand? So now, that is essentially where I was coming from, going to say, okay, to what extent do you then say, okay, we're going to centralize because we're a group of people, we need a leader, right, who's going to sort of represent us and make decisions on our behalf, right? But to what extent, how many levels are you supposed to have? Right now with the union, you have the local, area shop steward council, the regional executive committee, the national executive committee, the central committee. You have, regional, local, regional, national, structures. So how big is too big? And that's the question.
You must remember, unions work on the basis of their own constitution. Unions have got a constitution, and every time there's no consensus, or every time there are differences, the union must refer to the constitution. How does the constitution guide us here? For example, the constitution of the union will say, if there's no consensus in a meeting, if there are different views or differing views, you might either allow the members to vote, and if the vote is not successful, maybe it is 50-50, then the constitution will tell you, what do you do if there is that type of situation? Maybe it will say, then you must give the president, or whoever, or whatever the constitution says, must give the president a deciding vote. Once you follow those type of principles, then we have solved the problem. There must not be a vacuum. Once there's a vacuum, then you're opening up your organization to challenges. For example, that is why I will always make examples of our political situation here, because I was also once an activist.
Yeah.
In the ANC, there is a principle called democratic centralism. Once an upper structure has taken a decision, everybody must comply. If the upper structure says, Mpumalanga, your premier is not going to be the chairperson of the province. The premier is going to be the secretary, or the secretary is Sultan. The premier is going to be one of the MPLs in the legislature. The upper structure has taken a decision. You must comply. If somebody wants to challenge that, he must be allowed to challenge it. And then when they explain to him that no, the upper structure has taken a decision, we are applying democratic centralism. If this person is stubborn, the organization must take steps against him. Okay, and I was going just to make another example of allegations against chairperson of Eguruleni ANC.
Yeah.
The Eguruleni region. Masina decided to defy the provincial structure. Defy the provincial structure. What the provincial structure is doing now is correct. You take steps against this person. It does not matter whether he is popular in the region. The organization must take steps. What makes people to doubt some of the things that are done by organizations is because of no consequences. Some of the organization, one man once told me that a certain organization is a no consequence organization because people were not being disciplined. They were just doing whatever they want. So what the ANC is doing, the ANC is saying democratic centralism was applied and you are defying us. I'm just making this example. There are many examples where the ANC did not do that.
Yeah, no, I understand. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
I'm
just emphasizing that there must be consequences.
Yeah, and in that way, that will manage that will basically manage the dissident in terms of assist them to concede to the overall consensus. Okay.
But can I also touch on something that is a concern?
Yeah.
Your concern, one of the concerns that you're raising was the question of efficiency in the organization? How do you protect efficiency in the organization? How do you protect the unity of the organization? An organization worth its salt will not compromise its integrity because of people who are defiant, people who are actually difficult, because of people who don't want to listen, because of people who are divisive. Even if you are popular, an organization with its soul will deal with you.
Yeah, that's basically the example you just gave about the Ekurhuleni. You said, yeah. In your understanding, can a leader, or let me say it like this: does a leader rule or serve?
The leader is supposed to serve. Once a leader rules, then you are going to invite tendencies of dictatorship.
If we look at your you said democratized centralism. That's what you called it, right?
Democratic centralism.
Democratic centralism. If you look at that concept, democratic centralism, which basically says that once the leader, for example, has made a decision, then the followers must comply, isn't it?
Yeah.
So would you say that's indicative of rulership?
Not really. It's an indication of discipline. Yeah, I think to me it's a sign of discipline in the organization, order and discipline.
So it's order that, so basically it's order that is sort of facilitated by the leadership, would you say?
Yes.
Okay. So the leadership is serving by demanding compliance. Am I understanding correctly?
It's not really demanding. Demanding will be taking it to the extreme. Leadership is actually saying, in order for us to steer the ship to the right direction, let's all sit down. All of us. Let's sit down, because if somebody stands up, we will sink.
We will sink, eh?
Yeah. Basically trying to say, if you don't comply, you are putting the organization in disrepute. You are also inviting disciplinary measures against you, which will be unnecessary, I think.
Disciplinary measures that are enacted by the leadership. Am I correct?
Enacted by the leadership, yes, on the basis of established groups.
Just for this conversation, the benefit of this conversation, what is a leader?
My understanding is that a leader is a person who has been given the responsibility to assist wherever he is. If he's in an organization, he is given the responsibility to assist the organization to achieve its objectives.
Okay.
That is my understanding. Yes.
You know, this concept of leadership, I think so many people have an idea about it. And I think because of that, it's one of the most confusing, in my opinion, speaking for myself, it is very confusing because, again, the whole thing that of a leader doesn't rule but serves, but yet they direct and the others are directed. But they don't control. So do they control? They don't control. I'm not really asking you now. I'm just saying these are the questions that I have. Are they in? Are you? If you're so now, this is why I was asking, what is a leader? So yeah, in that respect, I do think it is pretty confusing.
But a leader again, you must remember, a leader again is the implementer. You have given the leader the rules, the policies, regulations of the organization he is supposed to implement.